It was the 4th year I had spent in Country M, a life I had chosen solely to be with my wife, Clara, while she pursued her advanced medical studies. One evening, the familiar city sounds were suddenly punctuated by a new, more sinister noise. Distant sirens that grew closer, followed by panicked shouts in the street below. The news confirmed what the sounds suggested. Civil unrest had broken out, and the situation was deteriorating rapidly. A wave of anxiety washed over the entire international student community. Everyone was scrambling, booking the first available flights, desperate to get home. It was in the midst of this escalating chaos that I discovered 2 horrifying facts at once. My passport was missing, and so was Clara. I had been stranded in a foreign country before, but never with the backdrop of political instability and violence. While I was trapped, fearing for my life with every gunshot that echoed through the empty streets, Clara made it back to our home country. She wasn't alone. She was with Mark, a junior colleague from her program. I only found out because Mark, in an act of breathtaking insensitivity, posted a photo on his social media. It was a picture of Clara's profile. Her face turned away from the camera, looking out an airplane window. The caption read, "Amidst all the chaos, luckily I have you." All my frantic calls to her had gone straight to a busy signal. After surviving an ordeal that felt like an eternity, the first thing I did was file for divorce. Clara, of course, was utterly bewildered. Hearing the persistent, busy tone on the other end of the line for what felt like the 100th time, my arm fell limply to my side. Downstairs, the unrest had flared up again. A terrifying symphony of gunfire, screams, and wailing sirens filled the air, leaving me paralyzed with anxiety and fear. I retreated from the window back into the relative safety of the bedroom, but the very next second, the sharp, splintering sound of breaking glass echoed from the living room. A stray bullet had punched a clean hole through the window pane. I had no way of knowing when this nightmare would end, so I simply curled up on the floor, trying to shut it all out. Most of my friends and fellow expatriates had already managed to get flights home, escaping this troubled and violent place. But without my passport, I couldn't even book a ticket. I was stuck. My passport had been kept in a travel wallet right alongside Clara's. It was a habit of ours for convenience. But when she had left so suddenly, I had woken up to an empty space beside me in bed and no note. Her phone went straight to that infuriating busy signal. When she finally sent a short text in reply to my dozens of messages, she brushed off her disappearance, saying only that she had something urgent to attend to. If it hadn't been for Mark's social media post, I might have actually believed her. I might have thought some terrible family emergency had occurred, something so urgent that in her panic she forgot to wake me or take me with her. I texted her again, my fingers trembling slightly. "You have my passport. I can't leave without it." A long, agonizing silence followed. She didn't respond for hours, which then bled into days. Our shared apartment, once a place of comfort, now felt like a prison. The food supply was dwindling, and the chaos on the streets below showed no signs of letting up. I had a plan to venture out for supplies during a lull in the fighting, but that plan evaporated when I discovered all our emergency cash was also gone. She had taken it with her. Having no money meant more than just the prospect of going hungry. Our rent was due at the end of the week. Shaking with a mixture of fear and rage, I repeatedly dialed Clara's number until my phone's battery warning flashed at 2%. Finally, she answered. Her voice was cold and distant. "In surgery. Handle it yourself." Yet, Mark's latest post showed a picture of them at a cafe with friends. She wasn't in surgery. My inability to pay the rent led to a cold, brief visit from our landlord, who impassively took back his keys and left me standing on the street with my luggage and a phone that was now completely dead. With the recent news reports fresh in my mind, I prayed I wouldn't run into any of the rioters roaming the city. But my luck, it seemed, had run out long ago. A sharp crack of a gunshot jerked me from a fitful sleep in the alleyway where I had found shelter. The street I was on erupted into chaos. Bullets whizzed through the air, their sound a terrifying whistle. I shrank into a corner, trying to make myself as small as possible, but a sudden, searing pain shot through my shoulder. A bullet had found me. Blood gushed from the wound before my brain could even fully process what had happened. No matter how hard I pressed down on it with my other hand, the warm, sticky liquid seeped relentlessly through my fingers. I was only 25 years old. I didn't want my life to end like this, bleeding out in a dirty alley in a foreign land. Desperate, I cried out for help, but my voice was swallowed by the surrounding pandemonium. Eventually the world went dark, and I passed out. When I regained consciousness, the sharp, sterile scent of disinfectant filled my nostrils. I was in a hospital. A kind woman, an older lady who owned a small Chinese restaurant nearby, had found me and brought me here. She was a complete stranger, yet she showed me a warmth and compassion that I hadn't received from my own wife. Faced with the mountain of medical bills, I wasn't sure how I could ever repay her. "Please, leave me your contact details," I pleaded with her. "I have to pay you back." She just smiled gently. "Don't you worry about that. Money isn't the issue. Young man, why haven't you gone back home yet?" I explained my situation, how my passport was gone, and I was trapped. After hearing my story, she took it upon herself to help me get a new one issued at the embassy, and even bought my ticket home. As the plane finally touched down on home soil, I took a deep, shuddering breath. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could stop looking over my shoulder. The literal feeling of having come back from the dead brought tears to my eyes. After saying a heartfelt goodbye to Mrs. Chen, I checked my phone. There was a message from Clara sent 20 hours ago. She said to wait a few days, and she would arrange for someone to help me return. I let out a dry, bitter smirk. I didn't bother replying. I just took a cab home alone. What was the point in calling? She wouldn't come to pick me up. She would just tell me to wait, or to handle it myself. Sometimes, I truly wondered what this marriage was for. Back in our apartment, I collapsed onto the bed, too physically and emotionally exhausted to care about anything. It had been a long, long time since I had experienced such a peaceful sleep. I was woken by a sound that didn't belong. A man's laughter coming from the living room. Confused and groggy, I walked out of the bedroom to see Clara and Mark sitting closely together on the couch. They were watching something on a laptop, looking cozy and intimate. They were so engrossed that they hadn't even noticed my presence as I walked up behind them. "What are you doing?" My sudden voice startled Mark so badly he practically jumped off the couch, looking at me with wide, nervous eyes. "Leo, when did you get back? Why didn't you tell us?" It was painfully obvious that while I was gone, they had been using the guise of friendship for something else entirely. "Why are you in my house?" I asked, my gaze fixed on Clara, ignoring him completely. "He just got back," she said, her tone defensive. "He didn't have a place to stay, so I let him crash here for a bit." "Oh, Clara, how very thoughtful of you," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Your husband can be left to fend for himself amidst riots in a foreign country, but you rush home with a junior colleague and let him stay in our home." "Leo, Mark is young and has no experience traveling. I was just worried he'd run into problems on his own." "And what about me?" I countered, my voice rising. "When you abandoned me in Country M, did you ever once stop to think about the trouble I might face?" My words finally silenced her. "Our apartment was very secure," she eventually mumbled. "What could possibly happen? Besides," she paused, unable to meet my eyes, "you got back safely, didn't you?" "Safe." I laughed bitterly at the irony of that word. To her, after I had narrowly escaped death, it was simply a matter of getting back safely. I had lost any desire to argue with her. As I turned to walk away, she grabbed my arm, her expression shifting to one of placating concern. "It won't happen again," she said softly. "You've had a long journey. Let me run you a hot bath." I pushed her hand away, a humorless smile on my face. "No need to bother. I'm clearly interrupting you two." "Leo," Clara's brow furrowed in displeasure. "Stop being so childish." The tension in the room thickened. Suddenly, Mark spoke up, his voice soft and full of feigned remorse. "Leo, Clara, it's my fault. I shouldn't have caused trouble between you two. I'll move out right away. Please don't let this affect your relationship." He then scurried into the guest room and began packing his things, acting as if he were the gravely wronged party. Clara and I stood in a tense stalemate in the living room. "He's just a kid," she said, her voice strained. "Why are you bickering with him? What if he gets into trouble out there?" I gave a half-hearted, bitter smile, struggling to muster any genuine emotion. "If you're so worried, you can go keep him company." When Mark came out with his luggage, Clara rushed to help him. "I'll take him to find a hotel. I'll be back later." With that, she slammed the door and left. Once again, Clara had left me behind for someone else. I should have been furious, but all I felt was an eerie calm. So many years of her indifference had worn away my feelings for her. Even seeing her blatant favoritism, I was unmoved. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the couch. My injured right arm was too weak to lift anything heavy, and a dull, throbbing pain radiated from the wound. It was even more pronounced in the quiet of the night. Every time it ached, I was transported back to that alley, to the feeling of helplessness and terror. Clara returned in the middle of the night. She found me asleep on the couch and laid her coat over me, the movement waking me instantly. Even though I was back home, I couldn't shake the shadows of the past. I slept on edge, startled by the smallest sounds. Seeing me awake, she sat down beside me. "Why aren't you sleeping in the bedroom?" "Too lazy to move," I said, pushing her coat aside. It smelled faintly of Mark's cologne, a nauseating reminder of how close they had been. Clara picked up the coat, looking more frustrated than apologetic. "Leaving you there was my mistake. But you shouldn't take your anger out on others or question my relationship with Mark. Leo, I understand your feelings, but don't go overboard. Mark and I are just colleagues." She paused, then added, "And since you're back, why didn't you tell me? I was worried." "Worried?" I repeated quietly. "If you were really worried, you wouldn't have left me alone in a foreign country for days on end." In the past, her sweet words might have calmed my anger, but seeing Mark in my house made me realize she had never truly cared. She knew how to take care of people, how to protect them if she wanted to. I was just never the one she wanted to protect. I was the one who had chased her all along, believing that if I could just win the love of the person I adored, any sacrifice would be worth it. In our unequal relationship, she had always been on a pedestal. To help her study abroad, I even used my family's resources to set up a life there with her, a decision that angered my parents so much that my father cut off my finances. When she proposed marriage later, I thought my sincerity had finally moved her. But years of marriage proved she was still just as cold and distant as ever. "Leaving you alone was wrong," she conceded. "But I had an emergency that required me to come home immediately. Mark came back with me because of that." "Oh, I see," I said, my tone flat. "Leo, what's with that attitude?" she demanded. I rubbed my aching shoulder, too exhausted to argue anymore. "Sorry, it's late. I'm tired." Maybe I had been too easygoing in the past, so easy to please that she thought I could be brushed off with a simple, flimsy explanation. But now, I didn't want to hear any more of her excuses. Ignoring her, I went to my room and locked the door. After hesitating for a moment, I took a deep breath, opened my phone's contacts, and anxiously dialed my mother's number. Hearing her familiar, warm voice after so long brought a lump to my throat and tears to my eyes. "Mom," I choked out, "I want a divorce." Everything I had delayed for Clara, including giving up my role in the family business, I didn't want to sacrifice anymore. I wanted my own life back. After I opened up to my parents, they forgave my past stubbornness without hesitation. My dad said that once I sorted out my personal affairs, he would give me a chance to prove myself again. Holding the phone, I agreed firmly. They even connected me with a top lawyer to help me prepare for the divorce proceedings. Thinking about the future, a future that was finally my own, I fell asleep. That night, for the first time in a very long time, I slept peacefully. The next morning, when my alarm went off, I got ready for the day. In the living room, Clara was typing furiously on her laptop. Hearing me approach, she looked up and, surprisingly, spoke kindly. "Have some breakfast. I got you something." I eyed the food on the table suspiciously. It was a bowl of peanut intestine noodles, something that would normally be very tempting. This was a rare gesture from her. I sat down, picked out all the peanuts with my chopsticks, and then began to eat. Seeing the small pile of peanuts on the table, Clara was about to ask, but I explained before she could. "Oh, I'm allergic to peanuts. I'm not being picky, don't misunderstand." Clara looked shocked and mumbled an apology. I cut her off mid-sentence. "The noodles are good, thank you." Seeing my seemingly good mood, Clara sat across from me. "Leo, about yesterday. I really want to talk it out." But when had she ever wanted to talk? Before, whenever I tried to share my feelings, she would ignore me. I would babble on while she tuned me out, sometimes snapping at me in annoyance. "Can you just shut up? You're so annoying." Even when she had free time, she never cared about what I had to say. We had lived together for so long, and she still didn't know about my allergies. "You don't care, so you don't notice." "No need," I said coolly. "There's nothing to talk about." "Are you upset about Mark? I promise I won't let anyone else stay here again." "It doesn't matter. Mark's a young guy, he needs looking after," I replied, my indifference clearly leaving her speechless. "Can't you just talk to me normally? What's with this attitude?" she snapped. I saw the anger flash across her face and wondered, what was wrong now? Was she angry because I didn't freak out like I used to, questioning why she brought another man into our home, throwing jealous fits? "I have things to do this morning. I'm heading out." With that, I cleaned up my bowl, grabbed my bag, and left, disregarding her growing irritation. "If we don't talk now, there's no need to talk later," she called after me, but she was met only with the sound of the door closing. My shoulder needed a follow-up appointment, so I had registered at a top hospital and was waiting patiently. Unfortunately, it turned out that Mark was on duty that day. "Leo, are you sick?" he asked, approaching me. "None of your business," I replied, not wanting to interact with him. "Ah, coming to see a doctor alone is sad," he continued with a condescending smirk. "But hey, your sister is an exceptional woman and is always busy." Lonely, maybe. But if he thought a few taunts would get to me, he underestimated how much I had changed. "Couch surfing must be hard," I retorted. "Did you find a place to stay last night? Or do you still need to crash at someone else's home?" "I'm not doing it secretly," he shot back, his voice rising. "Your senior agreed to let me stay over." The other patients in the waiting area started to notice the commotion. their curious eyes turning towards us. Seeing the gossip-hungry crowd gathering, I stood up and said loudly to Mark, "So you're saying Clara cheated on her husband and wants you, her lover, living in her house?" Mark's face turned beet red with embarrassment. Just then, my name was called for my appointment. I had no desire to continue the argument, so I turned to leave. But Mark suddenly reached out and pressed down hard on my shoulder. "Leo, how could you accuse me like that?" His hand landed exactly on my wound. I winced in pain and instinctively brushed his hand away with my left arm. I didn't even use much force, but he stumbled backward dramatically and fell to the floor. At that exact moment, Clara's voice came from behind me. "Leo, what are you doing to Mark again?" I turned around. The blood had already begun to soak through my white shirt, spreading in an alarming red stain across my shoulder. Clara's eyes were fixed on it. "When did you get hurt? Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice filled with sudden urgency. "What good would telling you do?" I replied, not wanting to have another pointless conversation with her. She grabbed my uninjured arm, not letting me leave. "Clara, don't waste my time. I'm about to miss my appointment." I pulled my arm back and walked past her into the clinic. The doctor's diagnosis was grim. I had sustained nerve damage to my arm, which was likely to cause long-term issues. Holding things would be difficult. Hearing this, I was spaced out the entire time the nurse was treating and redressing my wound. If this complication never improved, it would have a significant impact on the rest of my life. A slim, white silhouette stopped in front of me. I looked up. It was Clara again. She stared at my freshly bandaged wound, her expression serious. "How did it get this bad?" she asked. I pulled my shirt back into place and replied calmly, "I got hurt during the riot." Her eyes turned red. "Why didn't you tell me? I'm your wife." I met her gaze, my own expression one of genuine confusion. "Are you? You remember you have a husband?" There was a time when I wanted to share everything with Clara, all my grievances and my pains, but she always found me annoying, a bother. She wanted me to sort things out myself. Now that she suddenly wanted to know, I had no interest in telling her. "Leo, are you really going to be petty now, of all times?" she asked, clearly frustrated. "Clara, shouldn't you be at work? Don't you have patients waiting?" I ignored her shocked expression. After the nurse finished, I was ready to leave, but she stepped forward, blocking my way. "Then wait for me. I'll take some leave and we'll go home together, okay?" I decided to ignore her request altogether and impatiently brushed her hand away. "Clara, are you serious right now?" Her hand hesitated in midair. Who would have thought that such impatient, dismissive words would ever be directed at her instead of by her? "Leo, I'll come home after work to check on your wound, okay?" I pried her hand off my arm and walked out of the hospital without a moment's hesitation. I had truly urgent business to attend to, like meeting with my lawyer to discuss our divorce. "Leo, here's the draft divorce agreement I prepared for you," my lawyer said, sliding the papers across the table. "Let me know if there are any changes you need." Holding the agreement, I read it carefully. We didn't have children, which cut down on a lot of complications. We could have had a child, though. In our first year of marriage, Clara got pregnant, but instead of being happy, she was distant and cold about it. She said her focus was on her studies at the moment, and that it was better to terminate the pregnancy and wait until her career was stable. Despite my pleading, she went to the hospital alone and went through with it. She even had an IUD put in. I still remember waking up in the middle of the night crying over our lost child, while Clara stayed at the academy, leaving me to cope alone. Only when I had finally gotten over it, after making all sorts of concessions for her, did she deign to return. It takes time for a relationship to reach its breaking point, Divorce was inevitable for us. It was just a matter of when I'd be hurt enough to finally end it. It looks good, I told the lawyer. Let's go with this. The assets aren't a big deal to me. As long as we can get divorced, anything is fine. After finishing up with the lawyer, I didn't make it home until dusk. Walking in, I was immediately greeted by Clara's dark expression. She didn't mention checking my wound like she said she would. Instead, she interrogated me harshly, slamming her phone down on the coffee table. I didn't expect my husband's busy day to involve meeting another woman. Seeing her anger, I glanced at her phone. It was a picture of me chatting with my female lawyer in a cafe. It's just coffee with a friend, I said calmly. Leo, don't you think you owe me an explanation? She demanded. I picked up her phone. As soon as I touched the screen, the photo shrank back, revealing the chat it had come from. The message was from Mark. It read, "Senior, I saw Leo with a strange woman." So Mark had snapped the photo. There's no explanation needed. Nothing happened. I didn't bring anyone home, did I? Clara, still fuming, stopped short, her eyes fixing on my hand. Your hand? Where's your wedding ring? I pawned it when I was abroad, I said flatly. I needed cash. There was no money, and without pawning my valuables, I couldn't have survived. I couldn't keep burdening Mrs. Chen. If you needed money, why didn't you tell me? How could you pawn our wedding ring? I tried to find you, I reminded her. You said you were busy and that I should handle it myself. As she recalled her own past words, Clara seemed uneasy. Which pawn shop was it? I'll get it back. I didn't answer her. Instead, I took the divorce papers from my bag and placed them on the coffee table. Seeing the bold words, divorce agreement, a flash of panic crossed her eyes. Divorce? Why? I didn't bother explaining any further. I wasn't there to negotiate. I was there to inform her. There was nothing left to talk about. A divorce was the best outcome for both of us. Leo, can you stop being so dramatic? She said, trying to regain her composure. You can't scare me with divorce. I had already turned to leave, but I paused with my back to her. I'm not being dramatic. I've already signed it. Clara stepped forward to stop me, but I was quicker. I went into the bedroom and locked the door, ignoring her pleading from the other side. I gathered my things. Despite being married for years, my life with her hadn't really accumulated much. I had barely bought any new clothes, and my single suitcase filled up quickly. Seeing our wedding photo on the nightstand, I took it out of the frame. Clara had flashed one of her rare, genuine smiles during that photo shoot, making me believe I was special to her, that I was different. I had been caught in a fantasy of our future together. I took a pair of scissors and carefully cut myself out of the photograph. Clara knocked a few more times, but then the phone started ringing in the living room. She declined a few calls, but the person on the other end was persistent. Finally, she answered. It was Mark. I had no idea what he said, but after a short, hushed conversation, I heard the front door slam shut. She had rushed off to him again. I waited a few moments, then left the apartment with my suitcase. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Clara. Leo, I have something to deal with. Let's talk when I get back. I didn't respond. I just got into the car I had arranged and headed for my parents' home. The next day I was woken up by my phone ringing incessantly. It was Clara. I had said everything I needed to say yesterday. I just blocked her number. When she couldn't reach me, she started calling from Mark's phone. I blocked that number too. The days at my parents' home were busy. I had to get my mind back into a professional space. I had lost a few years because of Clara, and getting back into the swing of things at the family business wasn't easy. I was swamped with work, but it was a welcome distraction, until an old classmate invited me to a reunion. A few of the people attending were rising stars in the business world, potential partners I was interested in connecting with, so I gladly agreed to go. When I got to the private room at the restaurant, I noticed something odd. Everyone had left a single seat open next to me, while all the other seats were taken. My stomach sank with a sense of foreboding. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Clara showed up. She acted as if everything was perfectly normal, sliding into the seat next to me and grabbing my hand. "Honey, where have you been? Let's head home together after this, okay?" Her plan was transparent. Before she could continue her act, the old classmate next to me piped up. "Leo, you were so determined to win Clara over back in college. You two finally managed to tie the knot. So why the talk of divorce now?" Others chimed in, offering unsolicited advice. "Yeah, couples fight. Harmony brings wealth." I was growing increasingly annoyed and just wanted to leave, but Clara wouldn't let go of my hand. Her tired eyes looked at me, a silent plea asking how long I planned to keep this up. Everyone's eyes were on us. It was suffocating. I stood up abruptly and, without saying goodbye to anyone, grabbed my coat to leave. I yanked my hand free from Clara's grip, but the sudden movement aggravated my old wound. I winced from the sharp bolt of pain. Seeing my expression, Clara's grip loosened, and she let me go. As soon as I stepped out of the private room, the world felt blessedly quiet again. But of course, she followed me. "I have your meds in the car. Let me take a look at your wound." "No need," I said curtly. "I'll go to the hospital myself." "You won't even let me help you a little, Leo? Why are you being so heartless?" The pain in my shoulder was excruciating, and I didn't want to say another word to her. Seeing that I was ignoring her, she forcibly dragged me toward her car, despite my protests. Once inside, I kept resisting as she tried to inspect my shoulder. "Don't move. It's not a minor issue if your wound reopens," she said, her doctor voice taking over. She began to apply medicine carefully, her touch surprisingly gentle, afraid to hurt me. The memory was jarring. I remembered a time I had been rushing home on a rainy day to cook for her, and I had slipped and cut my knee open badly. I made it home with my pants stained with blood, only to be met with her disgusted gaze. The wound hurt, and I had begged her to help me with it, but she just coldly tossed me the first aid kit and went back to her study. "I have papers to write. Do it yourself." I was about to get out of her car, but I realized she had locked the doors. "Open the door. Let me out." "Leo, let's just go home, okay?" "Clara, we are getting a divorce." "I don't agree to the divorce," she stated, as if her consent was the only thing that mattered. I stared at her, then suddenly asked, "Is torturing me like this fun for you?" "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. "I just want you back." It was only then that I realized how childish and utterly ridiculous the woman I no longer loved really was. She didn't care how embarrassed I would be, inviting our classmates to pressure me into staying with her. She only thought about using them to get what she wanted, never once considering my feelings or my position. "Don't make me hate you, Clara," I warned her one last time. She looked confused, as if she felt wronged. "Leo, why are you treating me like a stranger now?" Eventually she gave in, unlocking the doors to let me leave. I called my car service and went straight back to my parents' villa. Clara wasn't giving up. She tailed me in her car, but she underestimated my driver's skill. He lost her after a few sharp turns. Her not agreeing to the divorce meant nothing to me. After 2 years of separation, I could file for it unilaterally anyway. Right now, I just needed to focus on getting my career back on track. I had already lost too much time because of her. Back at the company, I was put to work from the ground up again. It was humbling, but working there brought a fresh energy I hadn't felt in years. The young people in my department were around my age, but so much more cheerful and optimistic. Thanks to them, I slowly began to leave the memories of the past behind. Work started to feel natural again, and everything was finally falling into place. I often got so absorbed I'd forget to eat, and a sudden, sharp stomachache forced me to go to the hospital. I made sure to pick one where I knew Clara wouldn't be working. Yet, while I was waiting for my prescription, I ran into Mark. It turned out they were both there attending a medical forum. When he noticed me, his face soured. He deliberately blocked my way. "Leo, still hanging around, huh? I thought you'd have run off with some other woman by now." With my stomach already upset, I didn't have the energy to engage with him. I tried to move past him, but he wouldn't budge. Instead, he escalated his taunts, sneering as he got closer. "So now you're playing hard to get? Clara's like a ghost because of you. If you have any sense left, you'll just let her go." "Mark, I don't have time to talk about women with you right now. Get out of my way." He had no intention of backing down. "You won't be so smug for long. Clara will divorce you and marry me." His eyes gleamed with a smug, arrogant pride. It was clear Clara's favoritism had gone to his head. "Fine. Just have her sign the divorce papers. I've been waiting for a long time." I pushed past him and left quickly. As I walked away, he shouted at my back, "Clara's pregnant, and it's mine!" Though I had long been let down by Clara, hearing those words still made my steps falter. The irony was suffocating. We had only just started the divorce process a couple of months ago, and now she was pregnant with another man's child. They must have been sneaking around for a very long time. The thought made me feel sick to my stomach. I felt a wave of disappointment and disgust with myself for ever loving someone like that. Just as I got out of the hospital, I bumped into the last person on earth I wanted to see. Clara looked pale and unwell. She rushed over to hug me, but I instinctively pushed her away. "Leo, did you come looking for me?" she asked, her voice hopeful. I looked at her, feeling nothing but disdain. She took a diamond ring out of her pocket and held it out to me. It was the wedding ring I had pawned overseas. "Look," she said, her voice trembling. "I got it back. Can we go back now? Can we be happy again?" "Go back?" I asked, my voice cold. "How can we possibly go back to how things were? That child you're carrying isn't even mine." Hearing me mention the pregnancy, Clara panicked for a split second. "It was just an accident. Don't worry, I'll get rid of it." "No need. An abortion is hard on the body. We're getting a divorce anyway." I stepped around her, ready to leave. "If you don't like Mark, I'll cut all ties with him. Leo, please, don't go." "Even without Mark, we would still be getting a divorce. Haven't you figured out why?" Clara angrily messed up her hair in frustration. "We were fine before. How did it come to divorce?" I snatched the ring from her hand and, without a second thought, threw it into the busy street. A car's tires immediately crushed it to pieces. Just like our relationship, broken and beyond repair. Clara cried out and wanted to run into the street to pick it up, but she didn't stand a chance against the traffic. "Let's get the divorce finalized," I said, my voice hard. "I'm sick of feeling disgusted by you." She never understood how selfish she was. How can someone so completely self-centered ever understand another person's feelings? "Our years together. How can you just leave them behind?" she cried. "Years? You wasted 6 years of my life. I don't want you to ruin any more of it. Let me go, Clara, please." "No, Leo, we loved each other so much. How can you say it was a waste?" "Love?" I challenged her. "Then tell me, do we have any happy memories together?" Clara drew a blank. She thought for a long, silent time, but she couldn't come up with a single one. What she thought was love was just a facade built on my sacrifices. I was the one who dealt with the loneliness while she enjoyed the show. "Is there really no chance for us to reconcile?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "None," I said firmly. "If I could, I would wish I had never met you." With that, I walked away without a second glance. A month later, Clara and I picked up our divorce papers from the courthouse. She looked visibly gaunt and tired, her eyes bloodshot. I'm sorry, she said quietly. It was my fault in the past. I let you down. I didn't have time to listen to her confessions. I took the divorce certificate and left. My career was finally on an upswing, and I had far too much on my plate to dwell on the past. 2 years later, thanks to my hard work and skills, I had climbed to a management position within the company. A stable and successful career helped me find meaning in my life again. My parents were over the moon with pride. This was the life I was meant to have, one where I could shine. With success came more people who pursued me, but being burned so badly once was enough to make me weary of marriage. I adopted an adorable cat, and she became the newest member of my small family. One afternoon, I saw Clara again. She looked completely different, almost unrecognizable, pushing a stroller with a young boy in it. He seemed to have special needs. If it weren't for the conspicuous, flashy ring on her hand, I might not have recognized her at all. I had heard through the grapevine that after our divorce, she had quickly married Mark. But he was suspicious by nature and constantly checked up on her whereabouts, leaving her at her wit's end. She eventually lost her prestigious job because of a serious surgical mistake and had to stay home, only to find out that Mark was having an affair with his boss. Sensing my gaze, she turned her head and saw me sitting in my car. Her face went pale, and her eyes instantly became teary. I pretended I hadn't seen her. I just rolled up the car window and signaled for my driver to go. For the rest of my life, our paths would not cross again. I had my own bright future ahead of me,